George Martin is often referred to as the fifth Beatle, mainly for his fantastic production and some of the best studio releases by the band. I know it's easy to overlook, but believe me when I tell you that without his great production, albums like Abbey Road, Rubber Soul and Revolver wouldn't be the same. However, he didn't produce every single album by the band because Let It Be, the last album released by the Beatles, had the questionable honor of being produced by the infamous Phil Spector. But why? Well, in 1969, the Beatles were ready for a new album, but Paul felt like the band was too lost in experimentation and believed they needed to get back to live performances. His idea was to make a live album and record the whole thing with a comeback performance. Everyone in the band was relatively happy with the idea, but John made it clear that to make it work, George Martin couldn't be involved. Since John believed that for the album to truly sound like a live performance, it had to be raw and filled with imperfections. After a couple weeks of recording, the project was shelved and the band went on to work on Abbey Road, known as George Martin's best work as the band's producer. But when the band decided to go back to the Get Back recordings, George Harrison and John Lennon believed Phil Spector was the perfect man to work on the recordings. Known for his lavish production and unlimited overdubbing, Phil Spector filled the album with strings, choirs, horns, and a lot of echo, exactly the thing John wanted to avoid. So surely John was not happy with his work, right? Well, not really. Actually, he went on to praise the fact that he completely changed the sound of songs like Across the Universe and The Long and Winding Road, infuriating McCartney in the process. Obviously, this contradiction annoyed George Martin, who went on to say that in the credits of the album, it should have said, Let It Be, produced by George Martin, overproduced by Phil Spector.
I was losing control. My voice wasn't heard, and I got very dispirited indeed. And John's demands that we should make this an honest album, none of your production rubbish, he would say. But then after Abbey Road was issued, Paul rang me up one day and said, do you know what's happened to Let It Be? I said, no. He said, they've taken it to America and they've given it to Phil Spector, and he's been doing all the things that John said he wouldn't do, and they've put heavenly choirs and all sorts of soupy strings on it, on my songs. He was furious. So was I.